Hello everyone. For today, we will have solving quadratic equations by extracting the roots. But before that, let's review first. To square a number means to multiply the number by itself. For example, if you're given 3 squared, it means 3 times 3 is equivalent to 9. Another example, if you're given negative 3 squared, it means negative 3 times negative 3 is equal to 9. So therefore, when you say square root of 9, there are two possible answers. It could be positive or negative 3. So take note, if positive 3 is squared, the result is 9. If negative 3 is also squared, the result is 9. When you reverse the process by getting the square root of 9, there are two possible answers, which is positive and negative 3. So basically, this is the square root property that states if x squared is equal to n, so therefore x should be positive and negative n. Now, let's have this. Find the roots of the following. Square root of 16 could be positive and negative 4. Square root of 100 could be positive and negative 10. Square root of 121 could be positive and negative 11. Square root of 49 over 64 is positive and negative 7 over 8. And square root of 0.81 could be positive and negative 0.9. Another. What about square root of 12? 12 is not a perfect square. So to do this, identify a factor of 12 which is a perfect square. With this, we can have 4 times 3. Since 4 is a perfect square and the square root of this is 2. So the result is positive and negative 2 square root of 3. Another example, square root of 50. 50 is not a perfect square. A factor of 50 which is a perfect square is 25. So with that, we can have 25 times 2, which is still 50. And square root of 25 is 5. So therefore, the roots will be positive and negative 5 square root of 2. Another example, square root of 7. 7 is not a perfect square. And there is no factor of 7 which is a perfect square. So therefore, the square root of 7 is positive and negative square root of 7. Another example, square root of negative 36. Take note, in this case, the radicand is negative 36. And you cannot identify a number when you multiply by itself, the result is negative. So with this, the square root of a negative number, in this case negative 36, is positive and negative 6i. So the I here stands for imaginary. Another example, square root of negative 11. So in this case, it's still negative. And 11 is not a perfect square, so the result will be positive and negative square root of 11i. Question. When to solve quadratic equation by extracting the root? So we can do this if the quadratic equation is an incomplete equation where b is equal to 0. So it means if the linear term is not given, we can use extracting the square root. Example, solve by extracting the roots. So with this case, there is the quadratic term and the constant term. So with this, extract the root to both sides. So square root of x squared is x and square root of 100 is positive and negative 10. Another example, x squared minus 81 equals 0. Eliminating 81, we will add 81 to both sides. So we can simplify as x squared equals 81. Get the square root to both sides, so the result will be positive and negative 9. Another example. In this case, the value for a is 2. So we have to eliminate 2 first. So to do that, we have to divide both sides by 2. So we can cancel 2 and we will end up with s squared. 50 divided by 2 is 25. Getting the square root to both sides, the result will be s plus and minus 5. Another example. X squared minus 11 equals 0. Adding 11 to both sides, we will end up with x squared equals 11. And getting the square root to both sides, so this will become x and positive and negative 11. Another example. In this case, the value for a is 4. So we have to eliminate 225 by adding 225 to both sides. So with this, we will end up with 4x squared equals 225. Dividing both sides by 4, we will end up with x squared equals 225 over 4. With this one, we will extract the root to both sides, so the result will be x is equal to positive and negative 15 over 2. Another example, if you're given x squared minus 8 equals 0, adding 8 to both sides, we will end up with x squared equals 8. Now, extracting the root to both sides, now take note 8 is not a perfect square. A factor of 8, which is a perfect square, is actually 4 times 2. So square root of 4 is 2, so therefore the result will be positive and negative 2 square root of 2. Another example. If you're given quantity x minus 4 quantity squared equals 169, extracting the root to both sides, we can cancel the radical sign and the exponent too, so we will end up with x minus 4. And square root of 169 is positive and negative 13. So with this, we will have x is equal to 4 plus and minus 13. So to get the first root is 4 plus 13 equals 17. To get the other root will be 4 minus 13 equals negative 9. Another example. 2x squared plus 3 equals 39. To eliminate 3, we will subtract 3 to both sides. So with this, we will end up with x squared equals 39 minus 3 is 36. In this case, we have to divide both sides by 2. So simplifying further, we can cancel 2, and 36 divided by 2 is 18. With this one, we will extract the roots to both sides. So take note, 18 is not a perfect square. So 9 times 2 is 18, and the square root of 9 is 3. So the result would be positive and negative 3 square root of 2. Now, how is extracting the root applied in real life? So let's have a sample problem. With this, Mr. Cayetano plans to install a new exhaust fan on his room's square-shaped wall. He asked a carpenter to make a square opening on the wall where the exhaust fan will be installed. And the square opening must have an area of 0.25 meter squared. So let's have a diagram to this one. Now take note, the wall is a square shape and we don't know its dimensions. So therefore, let's assign one side as x. Now take note, the area of the opening of this exhaust fan is 0.25 meters squared. So therefore, to get the dimension of one side, we will simply get the square root of 0.25, which is 0.5. So the dimension of this side is 0.5. Now, question number 1. What is the area of the wall? So if one side is x, so therefore its area will be x squared. Another example. Suppose the area of the remaining part of the wall after the carpenter has made the square opening is 6 meters squared. What equation would describe the area of the remaining part of the wall? So with this one, the result is x squared minus 0.25 equals 6. So what is the meaning of this one? So this x squared is the total area of the wall minus the area of this exhaust fan opening. The result is 6. So this 6 is actually this pink shape or pink shaded area of the wall. So question, how long is one side of the wall? So to do this, we will simply simplify the equation in number 2. So with this, you add 0.25 to both sides, we will end up with 6.25. Extract the root to both sides, so the result would be 2.5, which is the square root of 6.25. Now take note, if you observe, we disregard the negative root. It's because we're talking about dimensions. So when you talk about dimensions, always go for the absolute root, which is the positive root. Now another example. Write a quadratic equation that represents the area of each square and find the length of its side. Example number 1. Now the area of this square is 169 centimeters square. So with this, writing this in quadratic equation will be s squared equals 169. So the area of the square is s squared and the result is 169. Getting the square root to both sides, so therefore, the value for our s is 13. Another example. The area of this square is 256. This side here is s, and both sides are added by 5 centimeters. So making your quadratic equation here would be quantity s plus 5 squared equals 256. Getting the square root to both sides, we will end up with s plus 5, and square root of 256 is still 16. So 16 minus 5, so the value for s here is 11. Now question, how to solve complete equations? We will answer this with our next video. Thank you.